In this example, I just want to give a quick tour of the AWS console and how you can navigate around the console. So the first thing is if I click over in the left-hand side, you'll see the services icon in the top left, and you'll notice there's different job roles that you might have. Within this course, we're going to be looking specifically at services that were related to software development. So you'll notice, like if I dig into any one of these job roles, so if I dig into analytics, there's services that are available for analytics. If I were to dig into game development, there's services for game development. If I'm going to look at machine learning, there's services for machine learning, media services. So all sorts of services within the AWS ecosystem. And I would venture to say 100 plus services. And as a software developer, we're going to be focused on a really narrow subset of those services. And even further, within those services, we're going to get a real light introduction to each of those services in this course. So the services that we're going to be using a database. So we're going to be using DynamoDB for this class. If I go to compute, we're going to be looking at EC2. We're going to look at Lambda. Um, if I look at front end and mobile, we might look at AWS Amplify. If I look at business applications, it looks like there's nothing in here. I was looking for API Gateway, and I wasn't sure where that actually fits. But you'll notice that I actually navigated to API Gateway in a different way using their search bar. So under services, they have things delivered by job role, and I could search there. Or I can go to the console homepage, which is where we're starting. I have my recently visited services, so a lot of these services are services that we'll see in this course. And then additionally, I can go into search and find the services that I'm looking for. Okay, so that's kind of a quick tour of how I'd navigate to the various services within AWS. And we're not talking about any one particular service at this point. It's just kind of a tour around the AWS console. Over on the right-hand side, you're going to notice that right now it's showing Northern Virginia. And if I pull that drop-down list down, you'll notice all the other different regions. Okay. And the way these regions are set up, these are actually Amazon data centers. So you'll notice they have a data center in Northern Virginia, one in Ohio, one in Northern California, one in Oregon. And then they also have global data centers. So for instance, let's say I was running a business and I happened to do banking in Europe, and the EU has regulations about I can't store customer data anywhere except for in the European Union. So I can't actually store customer data in Europe or customers from Europe. I can't store their data in the United States. I might set up a data center, or I might set up an AWS instance somewhere in Europe so that the data is actually physically stored in that AWS data center in Europe. Okay. And then a lot of the services, I'll get to pick and choose which region I want to work with. Okay, so as the semester goes, we'll kind of pick and choose those things. There's also some costs associated with it. So the way this works is Northern Virginia is a little bit more expensive than Ohio. Northern California is a little more expensive than Ohio, Oregon. So if you actually look at it, Ohio ends up being the cheapest data center to work with. So if I run my services in Ohio, I'll actually get a little bit of a cost discount because it's cheaper for Amazon to use those resources within their data center in Ohio. So that happens. And then lastly, over here on the right-hand side is just the account that I'm logged in with. So right now I'm logged in with the root user account for this AWS account. And that's how I would sign out of my account if I wanted to leave. So basically, a couple of things, your services that you're going to be working with, you can access them through this services menu, or you can search for them, or you can use recently visited. Your region, the data center that you're actually working with, and again, that's going to affect the cost to some extent. And then lastly, the account that you're currently logged in with, which is your root user account for the time being. Okay, so that's just kind of a quick tour of the AWS console.